exercises can be done at home, kind of a thing.
Right, right. So I have a small presentation which deals with, food habits of the child, immunity of the
Right.
child. That.
Right.
So maybe 10 minutes if you want, I can do that, and then we start off with.
Sure, sure.
I'll quickly run through some interesting slides I have, something I'm sure most parents won't be aware of.
Yeah.
When they say that my child doesn't like a particular kind of food, or he's not interested in this, or
Yeah.
He doesn't drink milk, doesn't eat vegetables, something to do with that. So what is that affects the taste of the child. So that is
right.
Some interesting literature. Or some mother says my child is not growing well.
True.
Height is not increasing. So a little bit touch upon that, so that it should not be only COVID. General perspective.
Yeah.
From there on, you start asking questions to me that what do you think about
Sure. I'll do that.
Whenever you are ready, so
we'll set the tone for that. Yes.
Right. All right.
And in fact, maybe Dr. Jyoti could have a lot more, because people are going through a lot of mental stress. So maybe she could, give us some insight as to how one can remain positive and calm at this point in time.
That's it. So I'll talk of the general aspects, and then she starts with those aspects, and then we'll have the question answers, and let the parents ask questions in the chat. And
Sri is there and Poonam is there. Both of them are here. They will monitor the chat, and they will kind of forward those questions to me, which in fact I'll share them with you also.
All right.
Chat, a private chat, we can share it, and then we can take it.
Right. So Ravi.
So I have made ma'am and sir, you are the co-host. So the chat setting is such that only the host will be able to see the chat. So all of us will have the accessibility to the chat.
All right.
If you want to try sharing your slides, we can try.
I'll show you. Let me do that.
Yeah, I think.
You can see the slides?
Perfect, sir.
Yes. I think, Poonam, once the session starts, you can put everybody on mute.
I will, ma'am. Yes.
Except Dr. Manish and maybe
Dr. Jyoti.
Dr. Jyoti and myself.
Right, ma'am.
Poonam, who is this 4K at GM person?
I thought you've entered. I
admitted. I don't know. I admitted.
Okay.
Oh.
Can we please request for your identity? 4K@GM. Can you please turn on your video?
Ma'am, this is Nupur actually. I've entered from another.
All right, Nupur. Great.
Yeah.
Niti, I'm admitting Niti.
And I think Shruti is a parent?
She's registered. We have her name registered. Shruti, I've forwarded you the names.
Okay. You have sent it to me on mail?
No, on WhatsApp.
Oh, okay.
No, this Monica had shared some names in the morning.
Right. So Shruti is one of them. Yeah.
इटली से करो उससे करो
Dr. Kapoor is here.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jyoti. You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jyoti.
Yeah, I'm Poonam Singhal, the head of Paras World School.
Great. Nice meeting you, ma'am.
And I'm so looking forward. I mean, you have such a fascinating resume. I mean, with the forward that, I mean, other than psychiatry, I loved it. I mean, you're into poetry and English language, and wow.
I think we all have different interests other than our profession. And if we are able to, indulge in them, that just helps us and everybody around. So thanks. I think you got the list of the questions also that we had created.
Yeah.
And, but there is a small PPT I thought just to start a conversation if people needed that. So that's also there.
So I think what we'll do is we'll start with Dr. Manish first,
Yeah.
and take you on, and then do the Q&A, if that's okay.
No issues. No issues.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. So.
Yeah, that's
works both ways.
Yeah. I think there will be a lot of questions related to how do you overcome stress, and how do you handle children, and how do you handle tantrums.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This has been a difficult time, I guess, for everybody. Plus, it's considerably new, and it's not just like anybody knows the answers. We're still struggling to find answers. We are in these conversations, in these webinars. Also, I get to talk to educators and I get to talk to parents. So I think it also gives us a better understanding of what things are and what can be done. So we are basically discussing to find ways of managing things better with our collective endeavor. So I think that's why it works. That is how it should be.
Mr. Narang is also there. Good afternoon, Mr. Narang.
Good afternoon, Poonam.
Mrs. Narang is our senior
Good
mentor.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I know that this is something that not just the fraternity of Paras is waiting to hear about. Dr. Manan?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Namaskar ji. I need to let you know that you are the pediatrician.
Hello.
Ma'am, your voice is lost.
Jai Narang.
I think everybody.
I don't know why you can't hear them.
Maybe problem.
It should be from here only. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
No.
Good afternoon.
Hi, we couldn't hear you, that's all. So now we can hear you.
Yeah, so we're just beginning in a while.
Ma'am, should we start? Ma'am, should we start?
I think we should. I think you can just allow everybody to enter because it's already 3 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So very good afternoon to everybody. I have a proud privilege of having Dr. Major Manish Manan the head of pediatric and neonatology at the Paras Hospital, Gurugram. A postgraduate in pediatrics from the Army Hospital, New Delhi, he comes with an extensive experience of more than 2 decades. He served in the Army Medical Corps of the Indian Army for 5 years. He also worked in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. He has extensive experience in neonatal intensive care and has been associated with various national and international research projects, including the ICMR and WHO, to list a few. He is also the former president of the Indian Academy of Pediatricians. He holds a special interest in general pediatrics, including growth, nutrition, development, parenting issues, and so on. Such a privilege to have you amidst us, Dr. Manish Menon.
Thank you.
We also have with us Dr. Jyoti Kapoor. She's a renowned psychiatrist with over 15 years of experience. She has worked as a psychiatric consultant, researcher, and a psychotherapist in various well-known hospitals. She's currently working as a psychiatrist at the Paras Hospital, Gurugram. With a zeal to contribute more to society, she has involved herself in various educative and awareness programs at local and corporate levels and spread information regarding psychological and mental issues prevalent in the society today. She has her expertise in personality disorders, adolescent adjustment issues, childhood behavioral issues, depression, anxiety, just to name a few. There are so many. She's an extremely multidimensional person. And we were chatting just before this webinar was to commence that she has special interest in English and poetry. And we would love to hear from her. So welcome both of you. It's such a pleasure to have you amidst us. And I request Dr. Manan to please take over.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words. So in this particularly going on pandemic, there are a lot of questions which keep coming to us on, apart from COVID, like the diet of the child, the nutrition, the growth. So I have a small presentation. I'll randomly show you some slides, which I think would be of interest to everybody. Let me open. So a little bit on childhood immunity. What are the factors which affect nutrition, growth, and immunity of a child? I'll try to wrap it up in about 10 minutes time so that we have enough time for question and answers. So if I ask a question, when do you think the whole process starts of the growth, nutrition, immunity, the foundation of the child? You'll be surprised to know it starts from the 18th day of conception.
Wow.
That is when it starts. And it depends on the nutritional status of the mother, her diet, her immunization status, her mental state. Then we have a concept called as 1000 days. 90% of the development of the brain happens in the first 2 years of life. First 1000 days means from the 18th day of conception till the end of second birthday of the child. This is a very important period in a child's life because so 270 days of gestation and 730 days of the first 2 years of life. So this defines, what the future of the child is going to be. A little bit on the statistics, about 47% of India's children below the age of 3 are malnourished. Malnutrition causes motor, sensory, cognitive, social developmental problems. The initial 1000 days, the kind of diet the child is exposed to, the kind of environment the child is exposed to also, lays down a foundation whether the child will be at a risk to obesity, hypertension, diabetes later on in their life. The kind of diet the mother accepts during pregnancy and during lactation also has an impact on what is the child's interest and what kind of food when the child grows up. Very often when parents come and ask that my child doesn't like A kind of food or B kind of food or has a craving of C kind of food, you never know, it could have been impacted by the kind of diet which the mother has been taking during lactation, during pregnancy. So I'll randomly go through the slides just to show you. So just one slide on what are the various factors which affect the growth and immunity. Nutrition, we all know. a good sleep is very important. Immunization of the child is very, very important. This is something which we can do for prevention. Prevention is better than cure. Hygiene, outdoor games, exposure to sunlight, unconditional love, avoid junk food, no kind of abuse. State of mind and happiness is very important. You'll be surprised to know state of mind and happiness also has a role to play in the growth of the child, in the height of a human being. I'll show you some slides related to this, and then we'll move ahead. So this is a data of how Indians have grown from 1840 to 1983. See, it's very interesting. The height has grown from here 160 and to here about 165 in these many years. And this is the slide which shows height of people in various other countries. Like you can see Netherlands is about 186 or something, Germany, United States, France. This is India. So next slide is the ranking of happiness in various parts of the world. See the top 10 countries: Finland, Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Netherlands, New Zealand, Australia, USA. And you look at their height, average height. They are actually matching. And the bottom countries like India is in 140 as far as the happiness index goes. And the height. So just to tell you that, happiness is a very important part in the growth of an individual. It affects such a basic thing as height. I'll come back to the presentation which I was in. So apart from the natural things, the pathological causes of immunity, like some immunodeficiency disorders, a child on any immunosuppressive drugs can affect it. Various studies have been conducted to see what kind of diet a child likes and what kind of diet a child takes. So one of these studies revealed that about 30% of the children did not get adequate vegetable servings. And when a question was asked, what was your choice of vegetable, the answer was French fries. This is the problem. Rather than the quality of the diet, we have been more focused into the quantity of the diet. A lot of rice, a lot of milk, a lot of potatoes. So it's not balanced. That is also making a major difference. Poor eating habits, basically. So increased consumption of beverages, increased calorie-dense foods, decreased consumption of milk and nutrient-dense foods. A question when I ask in a particular kind, any school, that what does your child have for breakfast? About 60% of the mothers say, "Doodh pee ke jata hai ji." He doesn't eat anything. He just takes milk. And they're fine with that. And the explanation given to me by the mothers is they get breakfast in the school. This is something which is not acceptable. No breakfast, no school should be the dictum. Your child should eat something before he goes to the school. Then he may have breakfast in the school. This is very important. Same thing is with the dinners. Mother has dinner with the father at some time. Father may have later on. Children have dinner at a separate time. Somebody sitting in front of the mobile, somebody sitting in front of the television. This seriously impacts the kind of food the child is eating and the impact the food is having on the child as well. So influences during childhood, like, direct experience, which I'll talk about, like, breastfeeding, and observation of eating behavior of the parents. These are also the factors which make an impact on how well the child is eating food. So does breastfeeding have an impact on the taste and food choices of the child? Yes, it does. So maternal diet during pregnancy, maternal diet during lactation, and complementary feeding. These are the three things which make the sensory world of the infant. Depends on these three things that what will be the taste later on. So in utero, the baby learns. The olfactory receptors and the taste receptors, they developed at 8 weeks of gestation inside the uterus. Swelling starts around 12 weeks. Non-nutritive sucking around 18 weeks. Inhalation and swelling of the amniotic fluid around 6 months. So this amniotic fluid actually forms the first food of the fetus. And It can detect taste and flavors in it. So what kind of diet the mother is taking, that has an impact from here on. So mother eats a lot of vegetables during lactation. The flavor enters the breast milk. Baby drinks milk, gets these flavors, promotes infants' acceptance of food during these flavors. More likely to consume more varied diet later on in life. And same thing is, mother eats a lot of vegetables during pregnancy. Flavor enters the amniotic fluid. Fetus gets these flavors. So when you come and ask me that my child is more, into junk food or doesn't like vegetables, think on what kind of diet you had during pregnancy and during lactation. That has an impact. A study was conducted in 6 countries and 11 groups in Europe to look into the food habits of infants and young children, and also to look into what we can do to improve the good habits, the food eating habits of the children, and how to do away with the unhealthy food habits. So what was seen was, by introducing the variety, you can increase the acceptance of food in a child. Infants and young children accept vegetables more readily. Now 8 means, when you come and tell us, my child does not eat bhindi ki sabji, or my child does not eat karela or a particular kind of food, refusing a food once or twice doesn't mean he doesn't eat it. You need to try at least 8 times, they say. And 8 times is not on 8 consecutive days. Today, after 2 days, after 3 days, and so on and so forth. Having tried for 8 times, if you feel the child has not accepted, then you can say, okay, the child probably doesn't like this food. Also, familiarity leads to increased food consumption. So happiness and growth, I have already covered. Next question, when very commonly amongst parents, is like, my child is not gained adequate height. So what are the factors which can affect human height? Genetics, we all know. Parents are tall, the child will grow tall. Apart from genetics, what are the factors? What are the interventions which we can do at our level? So it may be affected by nutrition, exercise, diseases, infections, and also environmental factors. Love, warmth, nurturing, parenting, pollution. So many factors can affect the height. We have seen children coming to us, not gaining adequate height. We have investigated, found certain deficiencies in the child, treated those deficiencies, and it has made an impact. So it does, these things do make a difference. Inadequate exercise also, because of that, the child may not reach the required potential which the child is supposed to take. A child who falls ill very frequently may not reach the adequate height that a child is supposed to reach. So this is also related to immunity. They are directly related with each other. Good health, good immunity. So stunting is a definition wherein, because of certain causes, the child is not able to reach a particular height. Poor nutrition, repeated infections, inadequate social stimulation. These are the factors which can cause stunting. Consequences of stunting: poor cognition, poor educational performance, and poor productivity. So what is the ideal diet for a child? If somebody asks me, what should my child eat? So this is the plate which your child should have. 1/4 of the plate should be with green vegetables, 1/4 is for fruits, 1/4 is for grains, 1/4 is for proteins, and this is the dairy product. Commonly what is seen is, half of the plate is full of roti or chawal, then a little bit of green vegetable here, of which also mostly there are potatoes, little bit of dal, and a big dabba of dahi over here. So that's an imbalanced diet. You have a lot of calcium over here, you have a lot of carbohydrates over here. Green vegetables which contain a lot of vitamin B complex and iron and that kind of stuff is not there. Fruits which contain a lot of antioxidants, vitamin C, that is not there. A lot of micronutrients are missed out. All these things have an effect on the growth of the child. Carbohydrates is only 1/4. 1/4 vegetables, 1/4 proteins, 1/4 fruits. So this is how a plate should be distributed. Apart from this, childhood maltreatment of the child can also cause decreased immunity. It can increase the stress level of the child, and a whole long list of diseases which can, which can be a resultant of childhood maltreatment. So PTSD, Dr. Jyoti would cover that better. I think anxiety disorders, even cardiovascular diseases, they can be a sequel to childhood maltreatment. So I will try to finish up over here. So healthy antenatal period is very important. Good diet, good kind of environment for the mother. Yes, it makes a difference in the child. Healthy and happy initial 2 years of life are very important. What kind of diet the mother is taking, the child develops taste to that during breastfeeding, and what kind of environment is there. First 1,000 days is very, very important. That lays down the foundation for the future. Good nutritious diet, happy, safe, stress-free home environment, sound adequate sleep, good physical exercise, outdoor games, screen time. The recommendation now is no screen time for about 18 months, till about 18 months of age, and beyond that also it should be not more than 1 hour. Additional love, avoidance of junk food. Protect your child from any kind of abuse. You should be vigilant enough. I'm not talking of only sexual abuse. It can be verbal abuse. It can be physical abuse. It can be bullying in the school. Any kind of abuse. It has an impact. Regular immunization is very important. Whatever we can prevent, we should prevent rather than the child getting the disease and then we treat it. Regular checkup with a pediatrician for evaluating growth, development, milestones, general health issues. Prevention is better than cure. So a good, nice family environment over here. Everybody's eating together, healthy food. Thank you very much. I think it's better we have some question answers. Thank you very much. If you have some questions, I think I'll be happy to answer them. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manish. I think before we go into the question answer, I'd just like to tell parents that if you do have any questions for both Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Manish, please write it in the chat box so that we can take it forward. Over to you, Dr. Jyoti. I'm sure there is, I mean, at the moment, there is so much of mental stress. People are wondering as to how to cope up with having children around them and also managing on the work front. So maybe you can give us some idea, some input as to how we can take, how we can increase our happiness, status of our happiness. Like Dr. Manish just said, the correlation between height and happiness. This is a very interesting thing that I learned today because I did not really know that there was some equation between the two. But I'd like to hear some more from you, Dr. Jyoti, as to how in the present situation, parents can take care of their children and take care of their own selves.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'll be again sharing a small presentation if I'm allowed. I'll be able to do that, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, all right. Dr. Manish has already given a very nice description of how the foundation of a child's growth is built right at the start, right when the baby is in the womb. And that when it comes to babies' mental health, we also talk about mother's mental health from the time of conception itself. In fact, it starts even before conception. It starts in our genes. The personalities we have, the way we handle stress, and the way we perceive stress around us is how our child would turn out to be. So parenting is that important, and we all know that. Having said that, there is no foolproof method of parenting. So there was a story which was about this priest who was not married, but many people would come to him a number of times to talk about the problems they were facing while bringing up their children. And he was so confident about this thing that he wrote on his posters of his 10 commandments of helping 10 commandments in parenting. But by the time he was married and had his 4th child, he actually changed that to maybe 10 know-hows how to deal with the child. So the maybes are there when it comes to handling a child. So we'll be talking about mental wellness. Now, word mental comes, everybody tends to get defensive. Nobody wants to talk about mental because mental seems to be connected to something that we are all scared of. It's being crazy. Primarily speaking, being crazy happens to only 1 in 1,000 population. Rest of us are having other problems which need to be catered to. When we say mental wellness, it's like physical wellness. And wellness is not just the absence of disease. Wellness goes beyond the absence of disease. So if we go, If we go towards the WHO's definition, it's a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her potential, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Now, for children, it's as true as it is for adults. In current pandemic situation, the stress is building because of one important reason, that we are all anticipating something that is going wrong. Stress gets perceived when we feel threatened, and this threat can be in any form. It can be in the form of health hazards, it can be in the form of socioeconomic issues. Children are largely not worried about the health hazard or so much about socioeconomic issues. What they are worried about at this point of time is not being able to live in an environment that was so familiar to them. They're stuck at home, they're stuck with parents, they can't go to school, they can't meet friends, they're supposed to wash their hands repeatedly, they are supposed to wash their feet repeatedly, and obviously when parents are also working from home, being home isn't that great as it used to be on Sunday anymore. You can't even go to the mall. So this kind of stress, which is associated with anxiety, uncertainty, and leads to irritability, is the ground wherein mental disorders develop. What is stress? According to the definition by a famous physiologist, Hans Selye, one's reaction to life events, the non-specific response of the body to any demand made upon it. Our response to any situation we find challenging, frightening, or difficult amounts to stress. Who can get stressed? Well, everybody can get stressed. I mean, there is no age or sex that is exempt. Many people, when they come to us, in fact, Dr. Manan and myself have seen so many people together. The child has come. I'm sure Dr. Manan has to make such a huge effort to actually send a parent to me, because the child's come with stomach ache. I have come to you. Why the hell are you sending the child to a psychiatrist? My child is not crazy. What kind of stress can my child have? I have given him everything. Now, that is the problem here. Even though we are shown the way, we don't want to take it because we feel that बच्चे को तो तनाव हो ही नहीं सकता, सब कुछ तो मिल रहा है उसे, but the child can get stressed. In fact, if you want to go by statistics, a child as small as 2 years of age has shown signs of stress. What can cause stress? Well, anything can cause stress, because stress is not necessarily because of COVID pandemic. For a child, it means nothing. Stress is those daily routine, small things that you have to adjust to or adapt to. When it suddenly happens, something suddenly changes, it is acute. When it is going on, it is chronic. When it is a change which may turn out to be positive, even then it can be stressful. So changing a school, changing place, going to stay at a new place, all can be stressful. So everyday stress, the child is stressed out when they have to wait. Because children by nature are impulsive. We are trained to lose our impulse. We have what we call an id. We want immediately gratification. So when we have to wait, we are stressed. When they want something they can't have, they are stressed. When they lose or break their toys or valued items, then they are stressed. So every day there can be small or big things, and they might not mean anything to the adult, but for the child, they are as important as, losing your whole life saving if you lost your favorite toy. It can be as stressful. So everyday stresses come in the form of early or rushed mornings, being hurried, exposure to new situations, starting school, transferring school, too many expectations or demands, authoritarian parenting style. I'm sure most of the parents who are here have already gone through parenting styles. Whoever comes to me, I feel that they are already learning about it. So authoritarian or disciplinarian parenting styles. Difficulties with peers, friendships, what seems to be very trivial to us is very important to them. मेरी फ्रेंड ने मेरे से इस बात पे बात ही नहीं की, मुझे उन्होंने उस पार्टी में नहीं बुलाया. My daughter had a problem because she filmed a video to wish happy birthday to a friend, and that was not included in the video that was sent to her, and it made her whole day go bad. But it's important to them. Transitioning from one activity or place to another, new beginnings, frequent change, unavailability of caregivers, difficult assignments, tasks, anything can be stressful for them. These, other than the frequent situations, we have this infrequent stressful situations. Birth of a sibling. We have heard of sibling rivalry, and many children act out when the younger one is born. I'm sure even Dr. Manan has seen the older one reacting when the younger one goes mad. That's why pediatricians are anyway half psychologists already. Moving to a new house, conflicts in family, most of the anxiety disorder patients, and today itself I had 3 of them in my OPD when I was seeing in the morning. The root causes start because of conflict in the family, because that causes a release of stress chemicals in the nervous system of the individual, and the threshold of the child to deal with the stress goes down, and as he grows up, becomes an adult, their ability to cope with stress is less. Illness and death in family, divorce and remarriage of parents, everything can be stressful. National global situations that we are talking about today, from disasters to wars to cultural conflicts and health issues, the pandemic that we have been seeing. So how do you recognize that your child is, under stress? Recognition of the fact is very important, but to recognize, we have to be receptive to it. We have to have an open mind that the child can be stressed. We can't keep closing our eyes and saying कि नहीं इसको टेंशन नहीं है, इसको टेंशन नहीं है, इसको कुछ और है, इसको पेट में दर्द है. Physical signs of stress. The most common that we see, almost 80% suffer from it, is stomach or bowel upset. 80% of children have stomach ache when they have a problem, and it is happening. They do have pain before exams, before an interview. We ourselves feel, butterflies in the stomach whenever there is something that we can't handle. So physical signs include, because stomach is known as one of the brains of the body, so it reacts to stress. So muscle tension that causes headache, leg pain, back pain, loss of appetite or overeating, restlessness, irritability, breathlessness, hyperventilation, increased heart rate or palpitation, cold, clammy hands and feet, fatigue, weakness, sleeplessness, long recovery from illness and injury, all are signs of signs. If you see angrily, maybe the child is stressed because who's angry? Anger doesn't really make anybody feel better. Irritability, anxiety, fear, forgetfulness, worry, depression, as in sadness, apathy or lack of interest, lowered self-esteem, increased anger and excessive fear are all signs of stress. But children don't usually say that they are sad. Children are unable to express that they are upset. What children generally do is they become or act out their stress. So hostility or aggression is very common among children when they are stressed out. Adolescents often would be banging their drawers or throwing their mobiles or acting out and be so, kitna kharab bacha hai, kya ho gaya hai, tumko sab kuch diya hai. But somewhere the underlying cause is stress. Irritability, crying, yelling, undereating, decreased ability to concentrate and making more mistakes, poor academic performance, clumsiness that leads to high accident rates, because we see it happening to us also. The day we are not feeling good, we are often clumsy, दूध उबल के गिर गया है, हाथ जल गया है, ये चीज यहाँ से नीचे गिर गई है, because a part of our brain is not coordinated with the rest of the body and discoordination occurs. Withdrawal from usual activities. When we talk about older children, drug abuse is another thing that can be a very major behavioral sign of stress and needs to be looked into. We see children nowadays consuming cannabis often, which is easily available. And due to some exposure to internet, they have come to believe that it's not a drug, it's a herb, that they can take it. So 13, 12, 14-year-olds using cannabis again is a sign of stress. So what can we do about it? Before we do about it, before we address the issues of stress, we have to see what can prevent the stress. Because if we have a strong prevention mechanism, obviously the next thing won't happen. So positive problem solving and coping skills, whether you are an adult or a child, is very important. Close supportive relationships at home and school with peers and adults. So there has to be with the child one caregiver who the child can talk to. And this adult can be a teacher. Many of the times, children come to me and I've found that they parents complain that कि घर वालों को तो कुछ समझता ही नहीं है, ये दोस्तों के साथ ही जाता रहता है, उसी से उनके साथ ही रहना अच्छा लगता है. And when you talk to the child says that I feel more accepted there. I feel they understand me. Of course, at the end of the day, the guidance received by an immature brain to another immature brain won't be that great, but they are comfortable. Many of the time, other than this, are close to their children. I have seen many, especially teenage girls, feeling that they are very close to their teacher. Why? Because teachers and being with children all the time, I guess, are highly sensitive to the ways the children are, and they can serve as great counselors. You don't have to have a psychology degree to do that. So a close supportive relationship is good. Clear expectation. Confusion is the key to stress. Whether you ask an adult or a child, मुझे करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए, पापा कह रहे हैं कर लो, मम्मी कह रही है नहीं करो, we are confused, and that causes stress because we don't want to displease anybody. Permission and ability to learn from mistakes. You are such a bad person, you made a mistake. Mistakes are necessary. Mistakes are important. We learn from them. If we never made a mistake, we would learn nothing. So a permission and ability to learn. Developing competencies, both all kinds of competencies when we are able to develop, including extracurricular, social, life skills are helpful in prevention of stress. But if I am under stress, what do I do? So how can okay, that will be next slide. So a few more things. Consistent, positive discipline. This is, by the way, the parenting styles we were talking about among four styles. The authoritarian parenting style is supposed to be the best parenting style that reduces stress, because we don't want to let loose, but we want to be receptive to the child. So consistent, positive discipline. The word is consistent. Ability to express feelings appropriately. Feeling physically and emotionally safe. Like Dr. Manan said, make sure that your child is not getting abused, because it's our duty to do that. Whether it is physical, verbal, abuse, emotional, sexual, it's our responsibility. So the child needs to feel safe. Good nutrition and exercise, and time to relax or do recreational activities. Now, how parents or caregivers can help prevent stress? Be aware of your child's behaviors and emotions. We have to be vigilant. We see changes, we blame them. That is not a good thing. We say, इतना अच्छा बच्चा होता था, अब बिल्कुल पढ़ना छोड़ दिया. इतनी बात मान, need to be able to look into that. Build trust with your child. Be available and open to talk with the child when she is ready. Non-receptive adult won't listen to you. Non-receptive child won't listen to you. Listening is an active exercise. Just because somebody's sitting there and you're talking, I mean, people out there might not even be hearing what I'm saying. So listening is an active process. So make yourself available, but then be sure that the child is also ready to talk or listen to you. Encourage the expression of feelings. Teach and model good emotional responses. Encourage them to tell you if they feel overwhelmed. Now, I have repeated this because encouraging the child lies in our hands. You may say, ये बच्चा ज़्यादा बात नहीं करता है, ये introvert है. You may say that, you know, he likes to be among his friends, but it's our duty to encourage them. And expressing emotions and feelings is very important. Most of the time, child doesn't do it because parents are not really comfortable with emotional expression of the child. So we need to encourage them and listen to them. Encourage healthy and diverse friendships. Friendship is important. In fact, studies for adults have shown that the happiest people are who have good social support or friendships, because friendships are not bound by roles or rules that our society gives, so they are more open. Encourage physical activity, good nutrition, rest, teach child to problem solve, remind child of ability to get through tough times, particularly with love and support of family and friends. So these are the few things that can be done. So what do we do when the child is observed to be stressed? Wait for a calm moment. We can't solve the problems immediately. It happens so many times that the child is banging the door. We immediately enter the room and say, how dare you bang the door? And at that moment, if you want to be warm and friendly also and say, open the door, why did you bang the door? What's happening to you? Why are you upset? And if the child is not willing to talk, the child won't, and you'll get frustrated. So wait for some time. Encourage to describe his worries or fears. say, okay, what's troubling you? The child may say, I don't know. Say, maybe you can use a word, pick a word. You're sad, angry, frustrated. We do this exercise often with children when they are not expressive. We give them a list of words and say, okay, mark the word that you're picking. Who could do that too? It's easy. And once you start a conversation, we can go beyond that. Listen very carefully. Try not to interrupt or finish child sentences. Because sometimes we feel we already know, we've been through it, we've done this. We start telling her, and the child cannot talk. Because the whole process of relieving stress starts with expression. It's not necessary that you know what they are saying. It's important that they can tell what they are feeling. Take worries or fears seriously, even if they seem silly. For that child, they are important, and therefore that warrants our full attention. So there are three main factors for mental wellness, be it an adult or a child. Trust, important, because if you don't trust, you will be stressed. You will always feel threatened. Positivity, because we want to do that. We want to, that again, increases stress. And communication. Because you might trust, you might be positive, but if you cannot talk about issues, it doesn't help. I think here I can stop this conversation. My stay home, stay safe changes to stay home and stay well, because safety is nothing if you're not feeling well. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening. I'll stop sharing my screen here now.
Thank you so much for that very enriching presentation that you made, Dr. Jyoti. I just have a couple of questions now. I don't know who out of the two of you are going to answer it, but I thought that maybe, these are questions which are very pertinent in today's time. And I'm sure there are a lot of parents who would want answers to that. And the question is that, what is the impact of online classes for children? This is a debate that is going on rampantly. And what kind of an impact would it have on the children, on their physical health in course of time? It'll have, a psychological as well as a physical impact. So how much of online is good online teaching, and how can we as teachers and as parents support this education in the midst of this lockdown and children not being allowed to go to school?
I think let Dr. Jyoti answer the psychological aspect. I'll take on the physical aspect later on.
Okay.
So you may, okay, right. So the psychological aspect. I usually start with the physical aspect of sitting in front and how it affects your posture and eyes and everything. But you are going to take on that.
No, you take that. You cover the whole aspect.
Okay. We have till now, and this discussion we are having almost on a daily basis. We know that UNICEF and UNESCO has asked to cut down online education. Kerala has already banned for till fifth standard. But as I was saying in the beginning when we were talking, we are still learning. We are not sure, but we have to find a fine balance in continuing education at the same time, giving something enriching to the child without causing any harm. When you are in front of an electric screen, it affects our eyes because we are continuously, unblinkingly watching at it on a screen, and the wavelength of the light that continuously enters, it causes effects on the screen. What effects Dr. Manish will take, but yes, there is dryness of cornea, the posture gets affected, sitting for a prolonged period decreases activity, so the chances of munching, eating, and less body movement causing obesity, etc. increases. So those are the things that need to be focused on when it comes to electronic screen. As Dr. Manish had already mentioned in his presentation, 1 hour was the time indicated, and every half an hour you have to move your eyes away from the screen, which means every half an hour you should get away from this for an adult, but for children it's all the more important. Psychologically, when you are consistently sitting in front of the screen, now say I'm taking a class, as compared to a real class wherein the teacher is looking at you. A teacher cannot see every child. So the child knows that I am not being watched. When that happens, that little external control required for a child, which will later on be imbibed in the personality.
Dr. Jyoti, your voice is not audible. Dr. Jyoti, you are not audible at the moment. Can you please check your...
That is one problem with the technology available today, that the teacher can't watch every child, which causes child to not be able to concentrate. Because they can't concentrate, and especially children have a higher rate of ADHD. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little better now. One couldn't.
I will do that. Maybe in the meantime, Dr. Manan can take it.
Yeah, I think.
Dr. Manan, you take it. In the meantime, I correct my.
I think there is some problem with the internet over there.
Yeah.
So, from a pediatrician's perspective, my point is, and my problem over here is, a lot of children are coming to us with overweight. In 2 months period, 2 kg, 3 kg, they have gained weight. So childhood obesity is a serious issue in Delhi NCR. You'll be surprised to know about 33% of children in Delhi NCR are overweight or obese. Online is going to add to this problem. This is a temporary measure, I'm sure. It can never replace the actual education which happens when a child goes to the school. We as pediatricians feel that. The interaction with students, with friends, with teachers, that has its own importance. So that can never be replaced. The other thing is, it increases the screen time, as Dr. Jyoti has already covered it up. The kind of posture, the way the child is sitting, how many times the child is blinking his eyes. So strain on the eyes, strain on the body, strain on the back. Children can come with a problem of backache, pain in the neck, and overweight. And because of obesity, it is not very surprising to see deranged lipid profile I have seen in children in lockdown. High cholesterol in a child of class 8 or class 9, you'll be surprised to know. Lack of physical exercise. I'm talking before lockdown. So lockdown has actually worsened this situation. It is very important that children start running, going to play, going to the park. I hope this happens early, because it's having a negative impact not only on the physical but also on the mental aspects. Dr. Jyoti is back, I think.
So, am I visible now? Am I audible now? No?
Not very clear, but a little better than.
Okay. Okay, so they're going. Yeah, you go ahead.
Dr. Manan, you talked about the children getting obese and stuff like that. So, what kind of nutrition would you suggest parents should give their children right now? I mean, it's a case of no option. I mean, the parents are also feeling a little helpless in terms that they cannot go to school and they cannot go out. And therefore, it is not out of want, it is out of the need
to
make the house.
Is such, yes.
So what nutrition, or what would be an ideal meal that parents can serve their children? Or
so as I had shown in my presentation, a plate should be divided into 4 parts. 1/4 should be green vegetables, 1/4 should be fruits, carbohydrates should only be 1/4, 1/4 should be proteins, and dairy products in the side. So according to the physical activity, the diet should be modified. If the child wants to munch something, eat something, let it not be sweet, let it not be carbohydrate, let it not be junk food. Let it be something healthy, sprouts or, kheera, kakadi, that kind of stuff, which does not add to the weight and which also
gives right nutrition.
Gives nutrition as well.
Right.
Sitting in front of the screen and munching peanuts is a very unhealthy thing to do, actually.
Right. I think this, I hope, the other question that has come up is that our children right now are staying in a very sanitized home environment. Their homes are sanitized. How will it impact their immunity? And if and when school opens and they are exposed to the school environment, which would not be a home-like environment, although schools are working very hard in making sure that you know, for a period of time, they're all inside in a very sanitized environment. So how will it impact the immunity of the children, and what measures can be taken?
See, the child already has his own immune system, as I discussed initially. Right from before birth till 2 years, till beyond that, there is something called as, you know, innate immunity, which is the immunity of the child within. So that will be there to fight infections. Yes, whenever you are exposed to a particular kind of infection, your body tries to fight that infection. That capability will be there. It will not be lost. So if you think my child has been there inside for 2 months, his immunity has gone down, no, that's not true. Unless the child has been exposed to a particular kind of disease which may cause this, or there has been a kind of undernutrition which has affected the child's inherent immunity, only then it will affect. Otherwise, the child, if he's fine, he's going to be as fine as he was before, provided he has good diet and some physical activity, even at home, you know, something like treadmill or skipping or yoga, something which the child can do to keep himself fit. That's very, very important. So there should not be any problem, I think.
So that's very heartening to know, Dr. Sood, because I think this is one thing that is looming large as far as, you know, fighting against the viruses are concerned. So it's very nice to hear that our own body has enough immunity to fight that out.
Very good. Just one thing I want to add, you know, of the total corona cases in the world, 98% is adults, only 2% are children.
Right.
Children are mostly either asymptomatic or very mildly symptomatic. Thankfully, they are very rarely you will hear a child getting very sick. So they are actually better off, much better off than the adult counterparts. So that's a good news for us.
Yeah, but we've got to take care of the children, of the teachers' health too.
Yes, absolutely.
Teachers are adults, and we've got to take care of them.
Absolutely.
Right. I think, Dr. Jyoti, I would like to just ask you a question. We know that social contact is very, very important for the development of a child's personality. And at the moment, we are aware that children are confined to their homes. How is it going to, you know, how is the social distancing going to have a long-time impact on our children in terms of their personality, their growth?
Yeah. So see, if this continues, and we hope it does not continue, if it continues, it will definitely affect one aspect of our health, and we call it social health. Now, why is social health important? We are gregarious animals. Human beings are gregarious animals. We are instinctively drawn towards other people. And when we get drawn, and when we meet somebody we can connect with comfortably, there is a release of oxytocin, which is a happiness producing chemical. It gives us a sense of warmth, trust, etc. And the physical contact makes it better. So it's actually not just something that happens. It is important. It is required that people, you know, connect physically. When we are talking about social distancing, we obviously cannot connect physically. When we are connecting with a mask on, I mean, I am having problem talking to my patients because there is whole lot conveyed through non-verbal gestures that cannot be conveyed just through language. So that doesn't happen. And virtual reality is no reality. I mean, virtual social networking, we have seen in past before COVID also, that doesn't give that sense of fulfillment that happens when you actually meet people around. So what needs to be done is that if the social distancing norms continue, we need all the more, it's all the more important that we have more cohesive family units, that we have more contact amongst each other within the family, that we are, you know, not shy of hugging and touching and, you know, coming close to our children in the safe environment of our homes. And spending quality time is very important. Now, till now, everybody was busy, and like Red also mentioned, you know, you're eating food on the table, but, you know, you're on your mobile or you're on laptop and you're not really connecting with each other. That would, you know, become all the more unnecessary in future. What will be necessary is that we get more and more cohesive as family units if this thing continues.
So yeah, so I think that's a good takeaway for the parents, that, you know, they need to get the bonding stronger within the family and connect, so that what they're losing out with not connecting with their peers in school, probably that is what they can do at home. I have another question for you, Dr. Jyoti, and that is, you know, parents have always been helicopter parents. We are aware of that. And And it's becoming more so now because of the close access that they have to the children, constant access. You shouldn't be doing that. Constantly being told, ye mat karo, wo mat karo. Some tip to the parent as what, how, I can understand their anxiety too, because, suddenly they've been pushed into a world where the children are in their face constantly. They have their own work that needs to be done. They have, there are parents who are working out of home, spaces are limited, and children are around. So how does one help in tackling situations like this?
Yeah. The first and foremost thing is that why our interactions suffer between people is that we look at the other person like the other person and we think we are right, he's wrong. We have to put ourselves in their space and see that if somebody was telling that to me, how would I feel? Even if they were concerned, even if my husband's concerned about my well-being, but he keeps telling me ki ye mat kar, aise mat kar, ye pehen, yahan baith, aise mat ja, isse mat mil. Even though he cares for me and probably is trying to protect me, I'll hate it. So when I can hate it, the same thing applies to my child. So we have to actually have this dialogue with ourselves, because most of the time we are creatures of habit. We just keep on doing things. We don't stop to acknowledge what we are doing. We have to stop to acknowledge and realize that this is what we are doing. And once we do that, we shouldn't be doing. There is another thing that happens with most parents when I talk to them in my clinic also, when they come with their children. I say, don't do this. And they say that, kaise nahi kare? I mean, hamari responsibility is. So they try to justify themselves. And justification means you're defending yourself. Defending means that you know that something's not okay. So if you have an urge to defend, if you are not actually trying to think about something, it means it is making you uncomfortable. So look within, say it's making me uncomfortable, which means that I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm still doing this. So what can I do about it? What can you do about it is, as said, first put yourself in the child's position to prioritize. You don't have to tell child everything. You don't want to tell child everything. We don't want to control every aspect of child's life. So know the child's ability. If he or she wants to choose to wear something, let them. If he or she wants to sit at one corner or not the other corner of the room, let them. If the child doesn't want to have milk but is okay with the dahi, let them. If the child wants, I want to, utilize this much time, talking to a friend and not watching TV, okay. You just decide broadly, this much time should be healthy here. This is what is healthy here. This is what is healthy. So do not try to micromanage. Have a broader concept. And final thing is, when you feel that you're confused, many of the time you're confused, what should we do? Talk to somebody, because talking to somebody always helps. I have felt that, I have come from a family of teachers. I feel talking to the teacher also helps. There have been times where I have gone and asked the teacher, what do you think I should do? So they can help. So talk to somebody. Talk to your pediatrician. He would also know, would have had an experience. So you don't have to come to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You will still get good advice. So prioritize, put yourself in the child's place. Prioritize what needs to be managed and what doesn't need to be managed. And then if you're still confused, talk to somebody. I think these are the three basics.
I think what I would take as from a teacher's perspective is that make a timetable with your child, set a routine with your child, in cognizance with your child, and set rules with the child rather than showing that hierarchy that I'm the mother or I'm the father and I'm the parent and I say so. But I think if it is done together, maybe a deeper impact and things would work out smoothly. Dr. Manan, we have children in our older grades who are feeling very stressed out, in the sense that, there is no let out for them. They are stressed because examinations and curriculum and syllabus and everything is so hazy. There is no definition, or there's no definite paths that is visible for them too. I mean, in the sense that board exams are happening, not happening. So how can we help these children? What is it that we can do to make them feel more comfortable?
Like one thing which is lacking these days is physical activity. So if older children, class 9, 10, 11, 12, they can go out for a jog or a walk in the early morning. Staying inside the room for such a long time is itself, that kind of exercise itself, it releases endorphins in the body. And that gives a sense of good well-being. So that is very important. And the second thing is they should remember everybody is in the same boat. Nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow. Probably the exams may be held in July, maybe August, whatever. So we should actually calm them. Let what happen. You maintain your own timetable, eat good food, relax. Some relaxation exercises can be taught to them. Something like pranayam can be done. It is very helpful. Yoga is very helpful. A little walk or exercise or jog in the morning. I will reiterate on this point. I think this is very important. It is going to make a difference. Rather than sitting in front of the laptop, computer, inside the home. And one important thing, since we are on this platform, I had a child who came to me today. The history was the child, बच्चे को चक्कर आ रहे हैं कल से. I said, अच्छा, what happened? A little older child. Said the child played badminton, came back home. When he was lying on the bed, he said, I'm feeling dizzy. So I checked his blood pressure, everything was fine. I just asked by chance, were you wearing a mask while playing? He said, yes. So you can't wear a mask and play. You can't wear a mask and jog. If you do that, you're going to rebreathe your own air. Your body's carbon dioxide levels are going to go up. That's going to cause dizziness. That's going to cause blunting of your reflexes. That can also cause fainting. So in physical exercise, running, jogging, cycling, whenever you're in a public place, yes, everybody must wear. But while playing badminton, you can't wear a mask. While playing tennis, you can't wear a mask. While running, you can't wear a mask. We should tell this to our children. We can't be lakir ke fakir ki mask bola to kuch bhi karo pehen ke hi chalna hai. So we should, everything has got its pros and cons. That should also be explained.
So, that's a very interesting perspective that you've given, Dr. Saab. In fact, when I go for a walk and I realize that I get breathless is because
you're breathing your own carbon dioxide, your CO2 level will go up in the blood.
Right.
That will cause fatigue, that will cause tiredness, that will cause malaise, that will cause breathlessness, and it will also cause lung problems if you do very severe exercise. So be very careful.
Right. There's a question. My daughter has seen some weird dreams few days back. I'll just read out the question. She says that she's seen some weird dreams. She's very scared after that dream. So how can I help her come out of it?
Dr. Jyoti, I think she should answer this question.
Yeah. So, okay. In fact, when we were talking about the signs of stress, one of the signs of stress is poor quality of sleep and nightmares and dreams. Now, the fact is that all of us dream every day. It's not like we dream some days and we don't have dreams the other day. The content of dream is generally associated with our routine activity that we do. And dreams, because they are condensed forms of what's going on in our mind, they're mostly symbolic. So what's happening there is not important, but what it is conveying is important. So if you get anxious in the dream, that means that your underlying anxiety levels are high. If you get afraid, your underlying fear levels are high. So that is what dreams convey. Second thing is the poor quality of sleep. Again, another important component of high level of mental stress. So it's important to talk to the child what's been troubling them. We need not focus on the dream per se. We need not focus on the fear factor per se कि आज भी सपना आएगा तो मुझे बुरा लगेगा. But focus on what could be troubling and talk about it. The child may not be able to express directly, but if you listen carefully, you might be able to see. You haven't mentioned the age of the child because it is important what age the child is when the child is having this problem. But now if the child wants to sleep in your room because the child is scared, allow the child to do that. Because a few days of comfortable, stress-free environment will help the child to deal with this. Make sure that you tell the child that, okay, once you're fine, we'll go back. So it's a temporary arrangement. But try to comfort the child while the child is there. If the thing does not resolve beyond, say, 2 weeks, we usually keep a time period of 2 weeks for any persistent mood change, then I think you'd need to talk to a professional. If this is a recurrent problem, talk to a professional.
I think, yeah, I think a couple of questions that are coming up is that the entire myth about not myths, the reality about sanitizers. I think children, from whatever I've heard, is that using soap and water is a better idea than using sanitizers. So if you can, kind of reiterate on that fact, it'll be helpful.
Yeah, that's very important point, because remember, sanitizer contains alcohol, so does it contain a lot of chemicals. So children, once I had gone to some school for something, I saw children sanitizing their hands and then eating their lunch. So you're not supposed to do that. Soap and water is always a better option. Sanitizer is if you're going outside for the hospitals. Inside your home, wash your hands with soap and water as much as possible. That is safe. Wash with soap and water, wipe it with a clean towel. That is more important. If there is a patient, you want to touch the patient, yes, you sanitize your hands. After touching, you sanitize your hands. But inside the house, I have seen sometimes, parents sanitizing hands of small babies, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. That's something which is very dangerous, should not be done. They should be washed. Your point is very valid. I think they should be conveyed to all the parents. As much as possible, use soap and water.
Right. And I think the other thing is that, due to non-availability of fresh towels, are tissue papers okay or not okay?
If you have your own hanky, that is the best. Yes, if you don't have, you may use tissue papers. So long as it is a clean tissue paper, it can be used, not in the, there was a lot of discussion on COVID, whether it can transmit from surfaces, if you touch a surface, people wash their vegetables and people sanitizing their vehicles. It was so crazy. The CDC has now come up with the guidelines that it doesn't transmit from surface. It doesn't transmit from surface. It has to be transmitted via aerosol. And if 2 people are wearing a mask, the chances of transmission are much less. If 2 people are not wearing a mask, they need to be with each other for good 10-15 minutes for that aerosol to go into the other person. And that too in a space of less than 6 feet. So it's not as that you pass by a person who is COVID positive and you will get it. It doesn't happen like that. Or you touch a vegetable, kela haath laga liya to ho jayega. That is also not true. You are anyways going to cook the vegetables very well. The virus is going to die. So
those are, I think it will be important. I think if you can give some myths that are working around the spread of COVID. For example, you leave your shoes outside and you must change your clothes and bathe every time you go out. I think a lot of this is there. So if you can,
When it initially started, people didn't know actually. They thought, it will stay on my cloth and then I go and it can spread via fomites. The CDC has now come out and said it doesn't spread. It's not so easy. Unless you pick that fomite and you rub your nose or mouth against it, it's very difficult for it to jump from your shirt and go inside your nose. It doesn't happen. So it has to be via aerosol. Yes, if you think you have been exposed to a high-risk area, it's a good idea to send your clothes for washing. Having said this, also remember 90% of people are going to be asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic. It's only a very small percentage of people who are going to be symptomatic, and yet a smaller percentage who are especially with comorbidities and the elderly who may get very sick. So we are very, very concerned about it. So that is why all precautions should be taken. 3 things: mask, social distancing, and hand washing. If we do these 3 things, let me assure you, it is not very difficult. We will easily be able to win this war. Before your hands touch your mouth and nose, wash it with soap and water, wear a mask, and social. Khali 3 cheezein karni. It's very simple. If everybody follows it, it is going to be so much more easier in every place. Unfortunately, most of the places it is not happening.
Yeah. And eat.
And one more thing, the habit of touching our face.
Yes.
The important point is that when we touch our face, we carry things here, and the pores around the face and nose are what are receptive. So if something happens to your hand, it's fine. But when you are wearing a mask, even if you touch your face, you'll be touching the mask. So that's why it becomes useful when you wear your mask. So one thing is wear a mask, the other is train your hand. And again, it's a habit, something that we have been doing unconsciously, so we don't know. So we train our hands. How we train our hands is that generally when you're sitting idle, you'll do that. So tell yourself, my hand's moving. I shouldn't move my hand. So read a book, holding a book, writing something, holding a pen. Tell yourself when you start the activity, I am not going to touch my hand. Believe me, once you keep telling that to yourself for 7 days, 8th day, you wouldn't do it. So being conscious of an activity actually makes it happen. Make it stop if you want to stop it, or make it happen if you want to make it happen. So you can train your hands.
Thank you so much. I think it's been a fantastic session. Thank you so much, both Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Manan.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's been a very enriching experience, and the way you have explained as far as children's growth, their happiness, their immunity, the online classes, and what all can be done as far as the mental health is concerned, was very heartening to hear from you. Thank you so much, and I hope we can get in touch again sometime.
Sure.
And a big thank you from all of us at the Paraswal School.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.